actually secured that playoff bye and lost. So the Draven ban and the Aatrox ban, I think, are getting rid of two very powerful early laning champions.
Yeah, and the Aatrox has been such a big pick for Dokla, right? This really has been his comfort pick. It has been where he's seen a lot of success. Poppy, the other one that most people will mention, but certainly not lane dominant.
Yeah, and if you're CLG, I would be pretty okay letting the Poppy through to Dokla because it doesn't seem like something that he would dominate the laning phase with, so to speak.
All right, as these bans finish off in the first phase here, Akali, Sylas, and Yuumi all going to be joining the ban table here as well. Let's see what CounterLogic Gaming want to start off with. The Corki and the Azir, those mid lane staples, both are still left available.
Yeah, Azir first pick would be pretty bold. It's interesting to see how much Sejuani has kind of fallen down in priority just in these two playoff games. Yeah. You know, it had been such a standard first pick, but Power of Evil going to be grabbing this up. This is the most played for Crown, so I do believe it is a bit of a takeaway there from him, as Crown really has been favoring Azir these last couple weeks.
I think especially as we move towards playoffs, the drafts will become even more specialized and tailored to the opponent the team is playing. I think often during the regular split, when you're just going to play each team for one game and then play a second unique team later in the weekend, you don't get to hone in on exactly what you want to do nearly as much. So the Azir here could absolutely be CLG saying, okay, let's put a lot of practice into Azir. We know it's going to be one of Crown's big matchups. We're happy with Azir against everything that Crown plays. Could be what something like they're saying, and that would be a reason they would first pick it.
Well, I feel like something you're always going to be prepared to play against on this patch is that Corki that OpTic have decided to first pick here for themselves, answering mid for mid, and they're also going to grab their bottom lane AD carry as well as their mid lane AD carry and picking up the Ezreal.
Yeah, it is interesting, you know, the Azir Corki matchup thing we've seen a lot of the time. It does feel like Corki usually does run the lane more early on. You do have a bit more of the push there, so priority may be given over to OpTic, you know, in exchange for perhaps more potential in the team fights later from this Azir. But Ezreal, again, fairly defensive lane. This already is feeling to me, and obviously the fact that Dokka hasn't picked yet, that we may see OpTic actually looking for more of a topside gameplay. I do think with Ezreal, with Corki, those are not lanes you want to gank, those are not lanes you want to attack, and they are saving potentially, you know, Dokla's pick for the counter pick here against Rune. So OpTic may be looking to kind of change things up a little bit here and play more heavily around Dokla in the early stages.
Well, if they're looking to play around the top side of the map, CounterLogic Gaming have just now grabbed themselves the Braum and the Sivir in bottom lane, and we know what Sivir can do when the enemy team does not apply any pressure towards her lane.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've actually seen Braum pick this early in a laning phase, especially before the support for OpTic is even locked in. It is something that Biofrost has a lot of career games on. As we mentioned during Countdown, Biofrost actually has the highest KDA in LCS playoff history now that he's back in the playoffs for the first time since 2017.
Yeah, and something we talked about a little bit yesterday in this series as Sivir was pretty big is Braum is so good against Sivir. Sometimes you want to actually just pick it with Sivir to deny it from your opponents. Being able to, you know, block the Boomerang Blade and the Ricochet, you know, can be pretty impactful. So, you know, does give themselves a little bit of a front line for this powerful backline they've already drafted and denies it from OpTic.
Well, as CounterLogic Gaming have gone for the mid and bottom lane lock-ins here in the first half of the draft, that leaves OpTic to grab themselves a jungler before the second round of the bans come in, which means they can feel confident and safe in banning out some more junglers, pinch that pool down a little bit more. You'll see the Sejuani banned away here, first ban in the second phase, as CLG decide they want to get rid of the Tahm Kench, deny that denial potential from the support of OpTic Gaming.
Yeah, it does seem like CLG is seeing that OpTic would want to play more passive bottom lane and at least wants to have the option to collapse down. But I do like what OpTic is doing with the jungle ban here. It is, I think, good to get rid of Wiggly's most played champions. You look at what he's played throughout the split. It's most played is Jarvan. Obviously has a lot of Sejuani games as well. Get another ban in there with the Skarner. The next most played he has left would be Trundle, which is normally something you would pick against a Skarner or a Sej, not necessarily a Jarvan. So it'll reach down Wiggly's champion pool a little bit.
Yeah, Sylas is also off the table, you know, something that is fairly high priority. So I do think, you know, he is looking more towards some of the early game picks that are left available, things like Rek'Sai, Elise, you know, Xin that he did show as well. But that is perhaps not exactly the sort of game plan that they would have initially wanted to go to.
High cover there for
the
a
Bard.
second, but it's going to be Bard locked in instead here for OpTic Gaming. And as you guys were predicting, leaving the last pick open for Dokla to see what they can do to play around him here this game.
Yeah, the Bard is actually a really nice pick here, I think, paired alongside Ezreal. You do have a fair bit of poke. You can run lanes in that way, but also the fact that Bard loves to roam and Ezreal is so strong in the 1v2, being able to farm safely in that regard does make it quite a powerful pick. It is going to be a blind Jace. I think this is smart from Ruin simply because they already have so much late game. You are picking blind into Dokla. It looks like that is a lane that they would want to gank towards. So pick something early, pick something safe that can't really be abused as heavily. And I think that this is going to be pretty smart, but it also does potentially just set up for a Poppy. Poppy is fine into Jace. That is comfort for Dokla. And I think that's probably what we will see here.
I agree. It would be a Poppy since Jace is locked in. Rek'Sai is tilting a little bit towards the early game, which isn't too surprising, and the instant lock on Poppy is not too surprising. As long as Jace has been picked in the top lane, people have considered picking Poppy against it, especially now with the recent buffs that Poppy received on patch 9.14, and a little bit more on 9.15 as well with the movement speed on the W. But if you actually do interrupt Jace's dash, which would be on his Q, he's then grounded for an additional 2 seconds afterwards, which would be very good if Meteos wants to try and get a gank on.
Yeah, I mean, remember the grounding removes your ability to do any follow-up movement abilities whatsoever. That's no flash, that's no additional escape, and that flash rule will apply to not just the Jace, but anybody else on the team that tries to pop one of those dashes inside the steadfast presence. Dokla can really deny a lot of the teamfight potential from some of these champions.
Yeah, certainly is going to be strong in that area. I do have some concerns, I think, for OpTic. You're expecting bot lane to be getting pushed in by Sivir. You're expecting top lane to be getting pushed in here by Jace. Azir should maybe be kind of giving up some pressure in the early laning phase 2 crown, but it feels like Wiggly is going to have more early game power in the jungle, is going to have more ways to actually invade and get aggressive. And I also feel like he has better lanes even perhaps to gank here. There's not a lot of gank assistance on the side of OpTic, so we'll see what Meteos is actually going to be able to get done.
Yeah, I think a lot of it might just be about whether or not Big can make plays on Bard.
Yeah.
Zooming around the map with Magical Journey would be something they kind of have to do, just because if you look at the scaling on the solo lane Azir for Power of Evil or the wave clear of the Sivir, it's going to be a lot of push for CLG.
The crowd is cheering, and we're about to hop into Summoner's Rift here for the first time today. CLG and OpTic Gaming going head-to-head here in the quarterfinals. And in case you missed what's at stake, remember, neither of these teams have any points from Spring. Neither of them qualified for playoffs. That means whoever loses here doesn't even get to go to the gauntlet.
And especially for CLG, who was 1 win away from securing a playoff bye the entirety of Week 9. The entirety of the final day of Week 9. They lost to 100 Thieves and then lost that tiebreaker to C9. And then OpTic actually winning 2 tiebreakers even to make it into playoffs. So CLG hasn't been to playoffs in the last 2 years. OpTic never been to playoffs. If they lose here as well, their season is over. So tons on the line.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it's been, OpTic back-to-back splits, 1 game off making playoffs. 1 game away from a tiebreaker, I believe, last split, and then they actually didn't even get the tiebreaker 9-9 the split before, becoming the first team to ever miss at that 9-9 mark. So OpTic has been a struggle for them to get here, and you saw how happy they were after finally qualifying here for playoffs, and we're going to have to see if they can utilize some of that excitement and that energy to perform well here today.
Yeah, Dokla going to be playing in his first playoff series, Big in his first playoff series. Have crowned a world champion from a couple of years ago, but first playoff series here in North America.
All right, we saw a little bit of an early invade there from CLG towards the red side of the OpTic jungle. Didn't turn into much. OpTic put down some vision of their own here in the CLG jungle, at least the Krugs. They are going to see that Wiggly has gone over to those Krugs after the red buff start. Not really too uncommon, though, as everybody makes their way into the lanes. No one wanting to tempt anything too extra in the jungle early on here in the first game of the series.
Yeah, it certainly can be, teams taking it a little bit more slowly oftentimes, a little bit more risk averse in the early minutes. It does feel like there's so much on the line and people are sometimes a little bit slow to start as a result. But there is always the potential of something like an early gank here from Meteos. If he has an idea of the path that Wiggly will be taking, so he should be able to be the one to kind of make the first move.
Yeah, I want to see how he tracks here. So he's done red Krugs. That means his 3rd camp will give him level 3 because he did the Krug camp. And then because we actually did see the early ward down here, and there wasn't an early gank down bottom, I wouldn't be too surprised if Meteos looked for something down in that direction. But that would be a little bit of a risk if they're already pushed in because there wouldn't be a gank there, but it is what Meteos' early game option is.
Yeah, certainly the case, and we'll have to see what the timing is like. But if you can reset the wave, then maybe it starts to push out, and maybe something is there. But the timing is looking much more like it'll be scuttled and they'll continue to clear, or even just go back to base. But for now, Wiggly power clearing up towards the top side, looking for that potential 6 camp clear. He could look for something up on the top side, but it's mostly just going to be about playing around vision in these early minutes because there really isn't any super strong lane to gank unless someone is pretty mispositioned.
Crabs have come online now as the junglers are on opposite sides of the map. Makes it pretty easy for them to divvy those up, take one apiece. You can see Wiggly using the Scryer's Blooms there. First the one in his own jungle to find one of the wards placed down by OpTic, clear that out, then pop down the Scryers in the enemy jungle as well, just to continue to maintain vision, see what's been taken, what has not. They'll find the Raptor camp there to clear away and just try to take any early lead he can find.
Yeah, I can see not too much happening here, as Azil kind of pointed out to. Both junglers just taking an early recall. It is difficult to gank that mid lane. If anything would happen, it would be around this bottom side, but because Arrow and Big are so pushed up, but they have pretty strong vision control. They just saw Rek'Sai top side, so Big trying to get a very deep ward and get out of there. So pretty well played early on by the OpTic bottom lane.
Crown at 200 HP here in the mid lane.
That would be a little risky with no heal as well.
Already choosing to Valk back. I like that decision. Just doesn't want to stick around any longer. Doesn't want to risk anything. You can see Wiggly hanging around just in case Crown did get greedy. Not going to allow himself to be punished like that. But top side, Meteos could be making a play here. Ruin in some trouble. Has to flash away from the combo, but he will escape the gank.
That is pretty key, though, getting the flash this early, especially since Meteos has already recalled, and he can do this Krug camp. So that gives him pretty good timing where he's not losing out on a lot of experience and could still make a return gank, especially if he came through the lane.
Yeah, and even honestly, if he can't get the return gank, this just means Jace can't really bully you under your turret. It's too risky. Unless you know exactly where the jungler is, Poppy gets so much more freedom now in this matchup, and something that we hadn't yet touched on is the fact that this is actually Klepto Jace. So he is just kind of trying to farm off this Poppy. This does lead me to believe it could be more likely where you're doing this build where you actually go lethality and just use it to actually kind of get through lane, then group and poke. But I'm really interested to see what he will be looking to commit to. Conqueror is much more likely to be the hardcore split push style. So I do think we are going to see lethality Jace more for grouping and team fighting.
Yeah, you can tell from the inventory there, he just about bought everything at the dollar store, has 3 different consumables of every different type sitting around. He'll be feeling safe there in the lane for a while. Bottom side, you can see some damage onto the health bars of the CLG members. There's plenty of poke potential when you have an Ezreal and a Bard put together like this. Their minion wave is building up, which means they will have priority over the bottom side. Meteos hanging out down here in this river, looking to see if maybe there's an opportunity to counter gank Wiggly, look for a Drake, or anything else that they could do with that priority.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the teams are trying to feel each other out a little bit in the early game of this playoff series. There were no very aggressive, risky level 2 ganks by Jarvan or Rek'Sai, who are capable of doing the early game ganks. Even though the bottom lane has been pushed kind of this entire time, they haven't incurred too much risk. The Braum Sivir is kind of expected to be pushed in this early. It's not until later that the wave clear would come out. But I think both teams are going to be relatively comfortable with this until one team actually decides to commit for an objective, and we'll see if there's a contest.
Right. Yeah, I think OpTic will be pretty happy, though, with how especially the bot lane has gone. The fact that they're going to get a recall. Like, this was actually a 6A recall on 30 CS. They're going to have Arrow going back on 50 CS, so his first buy will be a lot better. Sheen Tier coming through is going to be feeling really, really good, and now going to be set up very well for the rest of this laning phase. 6A is starting to get some more levels, is starting to get a little bit of AD under his belt, which will allow him to kind of match and wave clear. But, Arrow is at a point where you don't necessarily need the Bard around all the time anymore. So we could see Big starting to look for opportunities to get out of lane and try to affect some other areas of the map.
I mean, Ezreal's one of those champions that is at the top for being able to handle yourself in a 1v2. Just sit 1,000 units away, fire Mystic shots into the creep wave. You'll pick up at least half of them. It's not that big of a deal. You can see Wiggly going over the wall there to start up the Mountain Drake, but decides they don't have enough control over the bottom side of the river right then and there to be able to continue that one, so he'll back away. The bottom side of CLG will rotate up just to grab themselves some honey fruit. And you can see Wiggly still looking around for something, if not just a little bit of vision control here in the river. Both junglers are level 6 now, which means we could see some big gank potential coming up here soon.
Yeah, it looked like a zombie ward popped up in the pit as he was actually doing the dragon. So I think a ward actually expired. And he's like, oh, all right, they know I'm doing it. I'm out of here. So, you know, getting a little bit more control, but we'll be using this to grab a blue here for Azir.
Yeah, it's actually pretty funny because of Meteos' position. If the zombie ward hadn't have popped up, he would have just continued to do it in vision and likely secured it, because OpTic had no way of collapsing where Meteos was in top side, but because it did collapse, it scared him off, because I think that's also a bit of a mindset thing of, hey, we don't need to take risks early if you're CLG and Wiggly. They're saying we have PoE and Stixay, let's wait until we at least hit a 1-item power spike before making plays.
Yeah, and I think it's really kind of a funny thing to talk about, but it's one of those things where it's like you're playing for the percentages, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes the low percentage play is actually better, it works out, but over time it does not. And when you have the better scaling team, you don't need to take any sort of risky play. If they could collapse and you don't know where they are, why risk it?
Bottom side will continue to see Big and Arrow pushing things up here as mid lane it was Power of Evil who was handed off the blue buff this time around. We saw Wiggly smite to secure the blue buff from the enemy jungle previously. Crown prowling around in the bottom side of the river here with the package. Very important for CLG to play around that every time they hear that audio cue that it's up. And now that first Drake does go over to the side of OpTic Gaming.
Yeah, the tempo swap back to OpTic's bottom side as it looked like they got enough poke on the bottom side that they had to kind of wait back at turret. So Meteos was able to basically get an efficient clear of his jungle and go down to the Mountain Drake. Azale, this is interesting to me because when we're thinking about scaling, I see Azir, Sivir, very good scaling. But at a certain point, team fighting from Corki, Poppy, Jarvan, also strong. So I want to say COD has slightly better scaling, but they also have picks that have a specific point of fall off, like the Rek'Sai and the Jace. So it's like the top side of their map is strong early, and then their mid and bot lane have kind of the scaling insurance.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one of the things with Sivir is if you get to late stages of the game and you don't have a really strong front line, where OpTic certainly does have a stronger front line, it's going to be a Poppy and a full tank Jarvan. You know, if you can't actually safely auto-attack, you don't get any use out of that scaling, where Ezreal is a champion that is always going to be able to have access to, at the very least, get those Qs out as Meteos forces the flash there from Wiggly. So, you know, a lot of it will come down to how can they actually create space, you know, with the soldiers, with the Braum, I think, to get Stixay involved in those team fights.
That was a very cautious flash there in the mid lane from Wiggly. I feel like in regular season you wouldn't have seen that flash. They would have just took the 2v2, but again, CLG not wanting to make any big errors here in the first game. Wiggly will go back into the top side of the river and grab himself that Scuttle Crab, but Big is now doing what you guys were talking about. He's roaming around. Yeah,
and it seems like Meteos really scared off Wiggly despite not having all of the backup. That was a warrior-completed Rek'Sai versus a Cinder Hulk Jarvan with 2 people in the mid lane, but it does seem like CLG is in this mindset right now of, let's just hold out for the early game. Don't force anything. Even though it's a Warrior Hail of Blades Rek'Sai, that's exactly the moment where Wiggly would look to go one-shot someone, but they started up the Rift Herald. Feels like this is what they were waiting for, since they do have a little bit of a push topside, and it will be difficult for OpTic to contest, especially with how much Big got poked.
Lots of summoner spells ready to fire here. CLG has that Rift Herald down to 2,000 HP.
Trouble.
Top side, though, it is Ruin. So very close to dead, having a flash away, but the follow-up is there, and first blood goes over to Meteo.
Oh, that was actually so nicely done, and we'll see if Biofrost can get out, but you know what they actually did there? Jarvan ults right as Poppy is Eing, and you get slammed into the Jarvan wall. So for an instant stun, so Rune actually had his flash, but did not flash quickly enough, so he got fully stunned into the Jarvan Cataclysm wall, then knocked up, and that was a really good CC chain, because I didn't think they were actually going to have enough damage to kill Rune off before the rest of the team could have got over to him.
Yeah, and it also ended up being a little bit of a disjointed play from CLG's side for the first thing they commit on, which is the Rift Herald. Ruin's ending up kind of zoning out Meteos and Dokle, but he cheats back towards his top lane rather than towards the river, and there's the combo we were just talking about. Cataclysm into E-Stun, into Poppy ult, into the Steadfast Presence, so very difficult for Rune to get out. Does secure first blood with CLG getting the Herald.
And now that OpTic has that first blood, they've got themselves the gold lead that's only equivalent to the gold they earned from it. But CLG with the Rift Herald has the opportunity to get so much more. You've still got 90 seconds before the plates fall, which means 90 seconds where Shelly just getting a charge off nets you an extra 320 gold for the plates.
Yeah, and we often see people use it pre-14 minutes because it is that extra 320 gold. There are use cases where you're greeting with it because you actually want to get the first turret, because this is a situation actually where if we look at turret plates across the map, CLG hasn't gotten a single plate. So yes, you could get the 320 gold, but what I think they might end up looking for is a spot where they can actually get enough people in a lane so that the Shelly plus the team can actually get them that first turret, since there's been very little turret destruction happening pre-turret plate destruction.
Yeah, and you've definitely got to give some credit, I think, to Dokla, as well as the bit of pressure that Meteos put on top side, for actually defending all of his plates against this Jace in the 1v1.
Bottom side, Bard ulti, not going to find much there. Biofrost, Stixxay doing a good job with the fancy feet, keeping themselves alive, but Meteos is coming down here, looking to still make the play happen. Stixxay is going to be the target there. Meteos disengaging, trying to get himself away. A lot of damage still going to be coming out. CLG are doing a good job defending this. Ruin comes in. The cavalry has arrived here for both sides, but OpTic will get nothing as CLG take first turret top.
Yeah, so far in this trade, it's been a huge win for CLG. They got every plate off that top lane turret before it falls. And then the match TP also prevented the bottom lane turret from falling, and they even get half of the second tier.
Yeah, I mean, Dokla TP'd away from the Rift Herald there, getting called down for that potential dive. And that means they're going to even lose about half of the health off the tier 2. Definitely did not work out whatsoever, and it didn't even feel like it was very close to working out, honestly, for OpTic. It felt like a pretty bumbled dive.
And that's what I want to go back to what Mark said on the analyst desk when they were doing the predictions. He said CLG 3-0 because they have better objective control. He said in a series that was about consistency and things like this, that's what would put CLG ahead of OpTic. And there, they played the objective game better. They played for the turret. They used Shelly at the right time, and they were able to defend as well. We'll see if OpTic can make anything happen here. Infernal Drake is live, and we know how teams like to fight over these.
Yeah, this is big. I believe Corki has picked up the package as well for this fight. So it does give them that added bit of oomph around this area. Meteos already going for division control. As far as tracking ultimates, there is no J4 ultimate, and Stixxay's Sivir ult will come up a little bit sooner, so could be a very contentious Drake. We'll see how much priority gets put on it versus wave priority from CLG, because OpTic just starts it up right away.
Corki package is so deadly in some place like the river. Very easy to cut off escape routes, but it's not even going to be necessary. OpTic will secure their second Drake of the game.
Yeah, nicely done there from OpTic. And Dragons has been a big strength for CLG. They have taken more Dragons, I believe, than any other team in the league. So, OpTic, certainly it feels like changing up that game plan.
Oh, Meteos walking right into the first, but good lord, man. Big makes sure he keeps his buddy alive and gets him out.
That was a guaranteed kill from the Rek'Sai R if Wiggly chooses to take it, if that Bard ultimate doesn't land from Big. I was about to make the point that Meteos has looked more decisive than Wiggly in this game, especially with just committing straight to the Dragon or committing to the dive bottom lane, whether or not it works. And that was actually a great play by Wiggly to get that rotation and see that Meteos should be going for the Raptors, but because Big comes in with the ultimate, kind of saves Meteos' skin.
And I think so much of that is the veterancy difference between these two players. We've talked about how important they both are for their teams, about how much the junglers set up for everybody else on both squads. But Meteos has all this playoffs experience. He's been here 100 times already. Wiggly's still pretty fresh blood when it comes to the best-of-5 series, and Meteos is able to stay cool and collected.
Yes, sir. This is one more time on the Pro View replay here from Big. Meteos in trouble. Hits them both with the ultimate. Very nicely done from him. And you have to be able to pull off those sorts of plays on the Bard to make it a worthwhile pick.
Yeah.
Taking something like a Braum, at the pro level, these guys are always going to be able to execute on just putting up the shield, staying in front of someone. It's very simple to get value there. Whereas Bard is much more high highs, low lows, so you have to really be able to execute on some strong plays to get the value out of this pick that Biofrost is guaranteed to get out of the Braum.
I say it every time, Bard is one of the few champions in League of Legends that lets you actively troll your teammates if you are bad. So when you get to see a play like that that keeps somebody alive.
Too.
Yeah, Bard, Tom Kench, some of these champions can just have amazing saves or question mark pings until everybody's pinger is broken. But right now, Big's doing a good job here so far. He's helped Arrow maintain lane control throughout all the early game. You can see a 20 CS lead there for the OpTic 80 carry in the bottom lane because of it. Has the Iceborne Gauntlet online, still stacking that tier. Currently has it at 580 stacks, so somewhere around the early 20-minute-ish mark, we're going to see that one get all the way done. Meteos moving into enemy territory now, stealing away the red buff. He'll pass that one off to Crown.
It is also worth noting that Rune, despite the fact that he is not going Conqueror, he is fully committing more to his split push style. This is Black Cleaver straight into a Last Whisper, so it's not even Black Cleaver into Ghostblade or something along those lines, which would be more geared towards the team fight. This is to fight Poppy 1v1, but he hasn't really been that effective in that 1v1 thus far. I mean, he took no turret plates whatsoever in the 1v1. They actually got all 5 top lane from that Rift Herald.
Yeah, he is still applying pressure on the Poppy, which is, I think, what he wants to continue to do. Also did absorb 2 of Meteos' early game ganks, basically most of the early game attention. So I think eventually we'll still probably see the lethality items to come in for team fights, but it does kind of speak to CLG's plans of, hey, we're not going to group early with this Jace. He's going to continue to play in the side lanes. We're going to continue this mid lane farm off, really. You can actually see both mid laners have highest farm in the game. 213 for Crown at 18 minutes is massive, but both of them have actually accrued CS bounties because they're above the average CS of the game.
It would be really interesting to see, if you see this Last Whisper style build, geared towards the Poppy, if OpTic then just change up the lane assignments and send Crown to actually match Rune in a side lane, because Corki does love to sit in those side lanes as well, and Last Whisper as well as the Tabby's not going to really get very much value here against a Corki, who is now kind of getting corralled.
And standing still on a ward. There we go.
He's sitting right there, but he's going to face check into Wiggly, and this is a bad place to be. Wiggly goes into the ulti. Crown going to be in some trouble. Shut down there. The CS bounty going over to the side of CLG. Now what else are they able to find? Big's going to drop in. It's a double kill over to Wiggly. They'll see if they can go any further. They will not need to, though. 2 for 0, CLG.
Yeah, Wiggly finally finds that fight he wants to on the Warrior Rek'Sai. You have to kind of question why Crown was sitting so far up the lane when he could have waited for it to crash towards him, especially since he didn't have a jungler shadowing him. But that's a big punish play. OpTic tried to collapse to save him and ends up just getting the second death.
I mean, you can see that there's really not a lot of vision here at all for Crown to protect him to actually justify being this far up. And he does save the Valkyrie, so after the knockup, as you would have to do, but never going to be able to escape from that ultimate. But it's OpTic now trying to rush down the Baron. CLG reset and are going for Infernal.
The CLG reset after that could be a beautiful call by OpTic. Sure, CLG was desperate to get that first Infernal Drake, but you forgot about the Baron, and it goes to OpTic!
Oh, now that's the kind of sneaky play that can bring you back even after you just had a couple of misfires there. OpTic Gaming wearing purple 20 minutes in.
That is absolutely huge for OpTic, and we'll see how much gold they can actually get off the map here, as there's, tier 1 mid, tier 1 top. Power of Evil is splitting right now, will take a tower.
Yeah, oftentimes it's not about whether or not you make a mistake, it's how you respond to that mistake. So OpTic took those 2 deaths bottom side, turned it into an opportunity of seeding Dragon to go for Baron, but to Azael's point, how are they going to push this one? Because they don't necessarily have advantageous side lane assignments, and they still have to be fearful of the Rek'Sai chasing someone down to the sideline. So if you notice here, they put Dokla, their tankiest member, in the side lane, and they grouped up with the other 4 to take that one turret. So they'll probably send, if I had to guess, 4 more top lane after Crown picks up this side wave and go to get that next turret.
Well, as you can see, Baron power play currently sitting at 3 digits worth of gold. Killing Baron alone is worth 1,500, 300 for the entire team. So they need to get that number up a little bit. Those are rookie numbers. Need to pump those up here just a little bit, OpTic Gaming. We'll see if they can take down the remaining tier 1 there in the top side. As you mentioned, all the tier 2s, of course, still standing here as well. But it is difficult to push into an Azir and a Sivir, Baron buff or not. Meteos, Big, and Arrow still prowling around the mid lane here. Side lanes are set up with Crown and Dokla. Crown got caught last time. Probably going to be a little bit more careful here now. Biofrost doing a good job there, blocking away the True Shot barrage. as OpTic will continue trying to maintain control here in the enemy jungle. Baron buff allows you to push up more easily, set up some of these wards. We'll see if they can make any picks happen.
Yeah, that top tier 1 is very, very low. Doka likely can just get it here if he wants to commit to it, but being very respectful of Rune will eventually get that, but it's actually OpTic now pushing down for that bottom turret, 3 men strong in this bottom area. They have Arrow escorting in the minion wave mid lane, knowing he's very safe as that one-man army, can buff up those minions, and this also does allow them to potentially fight for this red buff that is about to spawn.
Could be a pretty big battle if neither side is willing to concede that red, but OpTic have full control over the area right now. Throwing down those control wards into the brushes as they move through. There are still CLG wards here, though. Really have to respect what your opponents can see, what they might be able to see if you can't confirm it's not dark. As Meteos goes in for the red here. We'll see if CLG want to try to contest it. Probably might be a Prey Seeker from Wiggly, but that would be it. Nope. Arrow's going to secure the red, and OpTic will continue pushing up the mid lane. 40 seconds left on Baron.
Yeah, in terms of initiation tools, it is difficult for CLG to actually push OpTic out of their jungle unless they wanted to try an all-in or a very risky play with PoE's Azir, and they're just really not at that state yet. They still want 3 to 4 items on Stixxay's Sivir, or even more 3 to 4 items on PoE's Azir. So really, they're just trying to withstand this last 20 seconds of OpTic's Baron.
Yeah, and thankfully for them, they really haven't fallen too far behind. They had an initial gold lead. Yeah. I think a lot of this game, the momentum in it, could swing around this next dragon as well. That is another Infernal coming back up, and later into the game, that does become so valuable. So we could see, the first major team fight really breaking out in about a minute or so.
2,270 gold. Final count on the Baron power play, which pretty much means the value of Baron plus 1 extra turret was what OpTic got. And if you're CLG and you let a 20-minute Baron slip away under your nose, that's about the best you could ask for.
Yeah, and I think it's actually somewhat expected based on the state of the game when it happened, because when OpTic took that Baron, it felt like CLG may have just grabbed the momentum away. It was after Wiggly found 2 kills in the bottom lane, catching Crown, catching Big, and with an Infernal Drake spawning. CLG thought, let's do that, and then let's take control of the Baron. So it was really an opportunistic Baron by OpTic rather than a total game decider. It really just kind of keeps them in it as they both continue to scale up.
We're back to a pretty even game state here. 25 minutes in, 1 Infernal for both sides. 30 seconds until the third one of the game spawns. Less than 1,000 gold separating the two teams. OpTic are going to be trying to shove out this mid wave. CLG will respond by attempting to do the same. See who gets control over this bottom side river first to fight over this Infernal Drake. Looks like it's going to be OpTic Gaming. Meteos walking through there, clearing out some of the wards from CLG. Arrow will continue maintaining his position in mid, throw off some Mystic shots, get whatever poke you can. And for CLG, it's so difficult to go too close to Crown or Arrow with these rockets and these bolts flying out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at the itemization here for mid and bot for both sides. 3 items completed here for Arrow, Essence Reaver, Triforce, and that Hex Drinker done for Crown. That is so much poke power with this 40% CDR. Corki, 3-item Ezreal. They are really set up well to fight for this now.
Meteos and Dokla both trying to go in there. You saw the flag combo as well as the steadfast presence coming out from those two, wanting to initiate, not quite able to find what they were looking for. Biofrost doing a good job again with the shield. However, when your Braum is at 1/4 HP, the fight becomes much more difficult.
Yeah, and Braum kind of is the front line for CLG, so their initiation options are even more limited now, which is why OpTic is starting
to steal.
I don't think he can even try.
No way. Not with the Smite there in the pit. Prey Seeker does 200 damage. Smite's going to hit way harder than that. And OpTic will now go back towards the mid lane. That was a real nice Bard ulti, but they're not able to capitalize.
Timing 10 out of 10.
Follow
the next
up,
step, not there.
Like a 3.
Didn't know what you got after that. It's like, all right, we got him.
Hey, they shot him with a Mystic shot, all right? There was something.
Yeah.
There was something.
Looks really cool, though.
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
Style point is what we like to call them here.
Exactly.
OpTic Gaming racking up some of those here this game, but one thing they're not managing to build is much of a gold lead. Still 44,000 to 43,000 gold. Baron's up for the second time, and I don't expect CLG to be asleep at the wheel. Brown, he's got package. He should be able to get away from pretty much anything.
So still expecting CLG to at least force out the package, because now Crown can use that to get control over this Baron area. And thinking about the game a little bit bigger picture, games like this, oftentimes end up being decided on one major fight.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to find that fight as a team when you haven't fought the whole game. It's been 27 minutes, and the only 3 kills have been a few picks. Other than that, it's been objective trading. So neither of these teams are in the mindset of, oh yeah, we are just 1 pick away from winning the game. But that's actually where we are right now. If Dokla gets a pick onto PoE, or if Crown gets caught again, that can lead to a Baron. And now the itemization of the death timers are long enough, that could also decide the game.
And one of the things that we've got to talk about then is what is the ability your team have to actually get those picks, right? And if you look at CLG, their initiation is fairly lackluster, right? You know, you're looking at a potential stream of shuffle, you're looking at a flash on Burrow, or a flash ultimate, but
well, here comes your initiation. Wiggly goes into the stasis, keeping himself alive, but now he's going to be slammed right back into the wall. Dokla's making it happen. Big Doke is on the prowl, and they're looking to find even more power of evil. Still looking to find the damage on the other side of the fight, able to get the flank. As now Dokla's grabbing the kill onto Stixay. PoE gets Meteos, but now he has to retreat. It is a 2-for-1 for the side of OpTic Gaming.
that was a critical kill, though, because that is the jungler down. It looks like OpTic just want to go to the Baron anyway, though. They are starting it up here.
This is a risky play. You could lose this to anything. CLG are not going to go anywhere near the pit, though. OpTic will secure this second Baron.
With 4v3 and a Mountain Drake, they're still going to be able to take that down. Big was zoning out. CLG doing their best to try and get a turret back and keep the waves on their side, because the second Baron for OpTic has the opportunity to be a lot bigger. Ruin does have flash, but Poppy is quite fast.
You got Bard chasing after you with those tunnels.
I think he gave him the slip.
Oh, they're all running the same way.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Jace! He avoided the guards! He's stealthed his way back home.
And they're wasting so much time. They're not even
Wait, why is he fighting the wolf?
He's trying to execute because he thought that they were actually going to chase him.
Just get some experience.
All right, wolves do 3 damage. They're not going to kill him this
Yeah.
time. Get in that brush. Get back home. Oh, no, he's cosplaying a wolf. And now he's going to go home. Awoo. All right. He gets out of there. Ruin pulls off the secret agent exit. He's going to go home just fine. And CLG have yet another 2.5 minutes, though, to defend against Baron.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I don't know if is that Solid Snake or is that like some Stormtrooper level defense? You know, which is it?
Solid Snake versus Stormtrooper.
Okay.
One thing I like what OpTic did here is Dokla basically just buffered his Eon Wiggly so the flash doesn't matter. It means post stopwatch, he can't get out. And then a couple really nice shots here. Watch the big ultimate onto Stixay that doesn't disrupt anyone on OpTic. So again, Dokla just stays in the front line, and he's at such a powerful point on Poppy right now where he has the resistances and the Warmogs, but the penetration hadn't been completed by CLG yet. No Last Whisper on Stixay. Now there is at least a Void Staff on, and oh no, Crown can't get caught again!
Oh, Crown the second time this game! He is too far forward, too far away from his team, and now his screen is all black and white for the next 45 seconds.
I mean, there's no vision on this side of the map. There's one single ward that he dropped in the pit. What are you doing invading this side of the map when you have 4 members top?
I can tell you what he was doing.
Trying to get the
I'm not
red
going to
buff.
say it's a good idea. Yeah, he was going for red, and he thought he could do it. He was wrong.
Yeah, that was pretty troll. But Crown is going to go down. We'll delay the Baron a little bit here for CLG. A big pick for them, as every kill you get during that Baron really does buy you time, and PoE is able to push out bottom wave here.
I think that's absolutely enough to stop OpTic from getting any meaningful advantage off of this Baron. The death timer is still ticking. It's 1 minute and 10 seconds. By the time you could actually make it to a bottom tier turret, Baron's going to be gone.
Well, OpTic did just at least get the teleport out of Power of Evil. He had to use that to retreat in time, else he was going to be collapsed on. Arrow now getting himself away from the Winter's Bite here in the mid lane. OpTic, though, I mean, you got 45 seconds left on your Baron power play. That's up to a whopping 150 gold. Woo! 2 whole control wards awarded from taking that objective. The Barons have just not been successful for OpTic Gaming this time around. For a game that's been played so cautiously by both sides, you've really got to take a little bit of criticism here for Crown, who has been caught twice now at really critical points.
Really stalled out the progression of OpTic's map plays. And now, though, they're looking for Wiggly. They do stop him.
He's got a Guardian Angel. He'll try to buy a little bit of time here. Should be able to get away. Only Dokla and Meteos are there, so not a lot of damage coming through. True Shot Barrage fired off, finds its way onto Stixay. No Spell Shield means it takes off about 40% of his health. And that is yet another Drake going over to OpTic. The next one that spawns will be Elder, and they've got 4 under their belt.
And this really is the critical problem now for CLG, is you're playing against this poke comp, and they don't have any consistent way to engage. So every time an objective spawns, both teams kind of wander over to the objective. Corki and Ezreal just continually shoot out rockets, shoot out Qs. Eventually they connect with something. CLG says, well, I guess we can't fight anymore, but they don't have any way to really reliably immediately start a fight. You know, you're depending upon Braum, Azir, and Rek'Sai, which is not anywhere close to guaranteed engage when you compare to the Bard, the J4, and even this Poppy, who are going to much more reliably be able to find fights.
Yeah, unless Power of Evil shuffles these guys like a Las Vegas blackjack dealer, you're not going to get a whole lot out of your initiation on the side of CLG. You're almost waiting for a mishap from OpTic, and you're then able to fire back on after they go too far in. But we've still got some scaling to do for the side of CLG to get to the point where you can just shred through these guys. There is still no armor penetration on Stixxay. You have the Void Staff, at least for Power of Evil, to punch through some of the magic resistance of the Gargoyle Stoneplate and the Adaptive Helm, but those are 2 big old meatballs beating the charge on OpTic.
I think at this point, these are the correct items for Stixxay at this point in the game, where he's hoping to get ricochets onto the less armored targets of OpTic. And CLG, the way they play fights is to kite back, right? Sit behind the Braum shield for as long as possible, hope Wiggly can get some type of all-in that either kills Crown or takes him out of the fight. Because if Crown gets tagged by one Ricochet or a Boomerang Blade, that puts him in kill range for a Rek'Sai assassination. So they can also just look for one random pick, because they've gotten them twice onto Crown, and then they can go from there. But overall, it is OpTic who's in the driver's seat here as far as this Baron that comes up in 47 seconds is concerned.
Well, for OpTic Gaming, they've got a good thing going for him in that Crown is at least within 100 meters of another player on the team right now, so he should not be in one of those situations here again anytime soon. You can see everybody regrouping, getting ready to position for this Baron, spawning in 30 seconds, as you said. Dokla hanging out in the pit, everybody else shoving up the mid wave, maintaining that pressure and that priority as Vision will be placed down, and they'll force CLG to face check into all that poke you were already mentioning earlier, Isaac.
Yeah, and they already kind of won the Vision war here. You can see there's no CLG Vision in this whole area, really, because they poked them out around mid lane when CLG was trying to push. CLG had to reset with that Baron nearly spawning, which gave OpTic time to go into the river, to clear out those wards, and this is how they are playing it out. So CLG needs to either hard commit to some sort of an engage or find a way to make OpTic engage into them. But without priority around an objective, you really can't do that.
And with Double Mountain, the Baron can go so quickly.
It's just going to melt.
It's probably a Baron that you don't even attempt to contest, which is what CLG has opted to do. They're going to take this time to shove out the waves, and we're going to restart this cycle now. 3rd Baron of the game already at 34 minutes. How much can CLG push out these waves before OpTic can actually get something to a threatening turret?
And I think now, you know, with the rapid fire and all these items on Crown, you can really just start to group and walk up and start poking around those turrets, and they're looking for PoE now.
This could be really big. Binding coming through. Biofrost going to be soaking some damage here on the front line. Dokla also going to be absorbing a lot. Stasis comes out. OpTic trying to walk away. Their top laner's in some trouble. Warmogs will bring him back up to healthy here in a moment. All they've got to do is drop aggro and regroup.
Double Warmogs is really huge as far as this push is concerned. They have the poke, and they just need to wait for the Warmogs to come back out. And that's another bit of a chunk of damage on a Stixxay from one rapid-fire cannon Corki auto attack. It's that little war of attrition that OpTic is trying to win.
True Shot Barrage won't find its way onto anyone. Dokla's regeneration was slowed down by a Ricochet, stopping the Warmogs, but once again, it's online. He's healing up, and the front line for OpTic is as strong as ever. The push will continue top and mid.
And the wave clear is just so good from CLG, so that is really something that has kind of kept them afloat against all of these Barons. Sivir as well as Azir are fantastic at clearing out these waves, so even with 2 lanes getting pushed in, you know, OpTic has not really been able to threaten these turrets just yet. Arrow coming back from base, though, and they are going to try to more heavily split up their team. It's 2 and 2, splitting mid and top, with Big essentially roaming back and forth in between. He's a portal away from either side.
Arrow and Meteos trying to put those auto attacks one at a time here into the mid lane tier 3. Cannon, you know, get off a couple of shots as well, but top side, they drew CLG away long enough to take down the tier 3 turret. You can see Power of Evil trying to summon a replacement. We'll see how long that'll stand, but the name of the game is still just buying time for Counter Logic Gaming.
Yeah, so difficult to push in against.
Oh, there they go! Oh, Wiggly's going in, the flash over the wall to shut down Arrow, and that's the the initiation CLG needed. Meteos now on the run, trying to get away. Wiggly's gonna continue chasing after this one as Ruin is in hot pursuit. He'll provide the damage. Meteos gets out over the wall, but CLG will not let him away that easily. Bring down the hammer. Wiggly grabs another.
An Elder Dragon is up, but the Baron is still there for OpTic, so they have just thrown this game wide open. They're going for inhibs while CLG is trying to deny Elder.
If they dive on a PoE, if you kill PoE, you could potentially end the game. There's only one member back here, but I'm not sure if OpTic even knows it. So they are backing off, and PoE will be able to hold the line here as the rest of his squad will get the Elder.
CLG with a flash over the wall from Wiggly will secure themselves the Elder Drake. They will hold off the OpTic assault.
This game has the recipe for 50 minutes because they've been trading Barons back and forth. The 3-Baron team doesn't have a gold lead, and the team that doesn't have the Drakes just picked up the Elder Dragon. And the way that this last engagement happened was, to me, all Wiggly. PoE was actually resetting towards base when Wiggly saw that opportunity onto Arrow. I think a Braum Q tagged him, which then allowed him to flash and secure the stun, which stops Ezreal from being able to get away from this one. Then he actually just continues to play and helps chase Meteos down with Chilling Smite.
Yeah, Meteos, there's so many slows between this duo. You know, Jace Q with the slow, as well as another Chilling Smite to slow him down even more. No way for Meteos to really escape. And this is starting to feel somewhat reminiscent of those early weeks of OpTic games, where you know it's going to turn into a base race, you know it's going to start turning into a split map. But they won so many games in these difficult to navigate late game situations. You know, started out the season 4-0 really by winning through split push, and I do think that with Crown on Corki, they could orchestrate a similar style of game.
They could, but we also have to keep in mind that OpTic has been the ones getting caught in this split push situation. If they had been playing this game cleanly after getting 3 Barons, it would be over. It's been, I think, CLG scaling up to these item points where they think, okay, now if OpTic tries to brute force a team fight, we can beat them, because it is a 5.5 item Azir and a 5 item Sivir that are very close to just wrecking through OpTic. And if you look at Arrow's build, he's got a quite defensive build with the Maw and the Iceborne even before the Luden's Echo. So if you're comparing damage between these backlines, I gotta give the damage edge to CLG.
And I mean, it's pretty rare to see a game go to the point where one team gets 3 Barons to begin with, but to get 3 Barons and then not win the game.
Oh, and be down in gold.
And be down in gold, yeah. For those of you who didn't notice the gold graph up on the screen there just a couple moments ago, it's been red, 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 and now we just finally have a little peak of blue coming out as CLG are in a comfortable position for the first time in a long time, pushing up towards the neutral point of the map. They still have to worry about topside, though. Remember, the inhibitor did fall as they took the Elder Drake, so they'll have to deal with that extra pressure here for another couple minutes.
And it's such an interesting game state, because I totally agree that, you know, CLG has more damage potential, the Azir, the Sivir, but Ezreal has so much more range, you know, with all the poke. Corki doesn't even have to be auto-attacking. They have been winning a lot of these fights before the fights even start, just by non-stop Arrow throwing out his ultimate. He's doing this on cooldown, ulting on cooldown, trying to get poke. Corki non-stop looking for that rock poke. You hit 2 or 3 of those spells, they go back to base.
Yeah, and Flowers, as far as CLG being in a comfortable position, it's more comfortable than they have been in the past, but I think the game is actually uncomfortable for both sides right now. It's an inhibitor down.
And look at Arrow, he pushed in this top lane.
And max items, so CLG's gonna have to match that. They do have teleport on Azir and Stixxay, not on Ruin, which is why Ruin is actually trying to run back out. They might actually have to concede this 4th Baron.
All right, here we go. I would say 3rd time's the charm, but no, let's go for number 4. OpTic's almost got a fistful of Barons this game. We'll see what they can do with this one. Yet another Baron buff for OpTic Gaming.
Has a team ever gotten 4 Barons and lost? That's something I want to know.
Yeah, I'm not.
Especially in playoffs.
They're collecting the Infinity Barons. You
Yeah,
need 5.
But they're all purple. You need like a yellow one and a green one.
Elder Baron.
Yeah, that's the true secret of League of Legends. After you kill 5 of them, the Elder Baron spawns.
You summon the Baron, he fights for your team.
Oh, yeah, you just push him down the lane like Season 1 Poppy. Or no, that was even Beta Poppy. Just shove him down the lane in the inhibitor. But unfortunately, you can't do that, so OpTic's going to have to win the old-fashioned way with this Baron buff here. They still have that top lane inhibitor dead, but it's only for another 30 seconds, so that's going to have to be re-sieged here soon. They also still have the mid and bottom lane tier 3 turrets to deal with. and this massive Azir that you already mentioned, chat, that has a full 6 items now. He's not getting stronger.
Yeah, and there is just the fleet footwork on Crown for lifesteal, and probably some lifesteal from his runes, and then Arrow doesn't have lifesteal at all. So while they do have Warmogs on the front line for sustain.
He's got Bork. Play the Rune King.
Ah, right, sorry. The Bork on Ezreal. So it's really just Crown that needs to be very careful not to get poked down by one small Sivir Ricochet or an Azir Soldier, because how much damage is on the Azir and the Sivir right now, that could repel this push, because all the CLG has been doing is they've been in this perpetual holding pattern of trying to keep as many inhibitors alive as possible.
The eternal defense of Counter Logic Gaming continues 42 minutes into this game. What a way to start the quarterfinal for one team that's never been here and one team that hasn't been here in a couple of years. For it to come down to one of these games where everything hinges on a single fight. This is a mental taxer right now as the mid lane inhibitor becomes exposed. The bottom lane tier 3 is under siege, and OpTic is applying the pressure.
This could be the time where they get it. They actually got enough poke onto Stixxay, I think, to force a reset. And Wiggly doesn't get the flash engage onto Arrow this time. That's the one that stalled it last time.
And that was really one of their main engage tools. Now it's up to PoE pretty much at this point. You know, it's going to be fairly unreliable for Braum to start a fight with an ultimate. At this point, PoE, you're depending on a shuffle or some sort of big Azir play. Otherwise, they're just getting bled out.
And this is the tough macro decision for OpTic.
Here we go. Wiggly's onto the back line. Arrow's going to be thrown up into the air, and he is taken out. Stixxay grabbing the kill credit there. They won't chase any further. They recognize there's still more to defend here back in the base. Big going to be in some trouble. Collapsed on now by the rest of CLG. But he's done his job. He took the inhib, and Crown and Dokla are looking for the third. If they can get 3, that's so many super minions in the enemy base, but they don't quite have the damage. Ruin's grabbing the kill onto Big, and OpTic will back away.
And second Elder is up, so they actually can't afford to just give all their lives away for this. They're actually going to retreat to that Elder, trying to take it away. If CLG gets that, that is that double power buff.
Yeah, and that's the risk that OpTic was taking there. They're trying to stick around to get 3 inhibitors.
Oh, they're burning it down.
But they're risking actually dying. The double mountain is trying to burn, but Wiggly could be here for a steal.
OpTic does so much damage to the thing, and it is secured by the side of OpTic Gaming. That is huge.
That is actually so big, and despite the fact that they were down 2 members, you know, Big drawing members up to that top lane does give his life, but ends up being fairly worthwhile because CLG has to actually chase up there, you know, buying time for OpTic to go over to the Elder, to rush that down, and now they do have that 4-Dragon Elder. Here it is, straight in onto Arrow. A Biofrost, it looks like, just got him with an auto attack, tagged him with that, and they're able to just follow up straight onto him as a Prey Seeker was already on there from Wiggly, so he ults in, and they just all dogpiled in on Ezreal and took him down.
Yeah, and look at that Zhonya's Hourglass that Arrow has just picked up. So he actually sold his Lost Chapter, isn't going the Luden's build, which is higher poke, and instead is going this Zhonya's over even something like a QSS, because that kind of, to me, says that OpTic is not even thinking about full-on team fights. They're like, we're either going to pick or be picked, and then we're going to win with map pressure, because otherwise I feel like that would totally be the wrong choice. I want to see how that ends up playing out for Arrow.
To the wall comes Wiggly.
Where's the stopwatch?
In the air. Arrow's in some trouble here. Yet again, collapsed by CLG. And Arrow's in the ground. TP comes in, but now it's a lot of trouble for Dokla. And a double kill over to Stixxay. A TP going back to the base as Power of Evil will attempt to deal with Crown. He gets himself back over the wall, but the inhibitors are down. Crown is still here. CLG is collapsing.
CLG might end the game.
CLG's pushing me.
They have to look out here as the damage goes through, and Crown is taken down.
So he's gonna win.
CLG's in the enemy base. Crown is gone. Everybody's gone, and CLG are on the victory march. Meteos will see if there is anything he can do, but that is a full build Sivir. That is a CLG teleport, and that is CLG Nexus turrets evaporating before their eyes. They defended for 46 minutes, and CLG take game 1.
I actually can't believe it. Yeah. They completely threw the game away at the very end there. You know, Ezreal gets caught, not even using the Zhonya's. Dokla TPs into a lost fight while Crown is pushing bot. just suiciding into that, like everything fell apart at the end for them. That should have been their game. Dokla could have just pushed bot with Crown and they could potentially look for an end.
Has a team ever got 4 Barons and lost?
Yes.
How many Barons does it take to beat CLG in playoffs when they're running Azir Sivir?
Well, apparently it's more than 4. CLG.
How many picks onto Crown?
Defense.
How many picks onto Arrow? That was 3 times where the Ezreal got caught while they're trying to set up the split push. The Ezreal!
Yeah.
Who
And
can
they have
poke
no
from
real
1200 range.
engage.
So it's bad by OpTic, and I have to give some credit for CLG for finding those picks. The move speed they have over a long period. So if you consider the Sivir ult and the Jace gate, that's more than enough to close the gap on a shift flash from Ezreal if OpTic isn't there to retaliate. So almost like the instant you saw Arrow pick up that Zhonya's, they think, actually, he's not going to do damage to us. Let's just charge. Because that's all they had left.
And I mean, it worked, right? Sometimes you just have to run it down mid after the guy and take him out the old-fashioned way. But for more on how CLG pulled that game out of the jaws of death, let's hand it back over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
You could say that 1, 2, or 10 times more, my friend Captain Flowers. What an impressive comeback victory from CLG to take it out of the jaws of defeat. And welcome to the desk, Scar, to help us break down that crazy opener to a best-of-5.
And that was a game.
That was a game.
Actual. Yeah, that's my fair analysis of the game. I was sitting down there watching you guys, and it's like, oh, CLG won.
CLG won.
We just run back here.
This is how it happened right here. Wiggly popping off in his first best-of-5 playoff series here on the LCS stage. Gets the all-important pick onto Arrow.
Yeah, he did it 2 or 3 times.
You know, I'm starting to think that Ezreal might not be the safest of all carries. That's why people draft him all the time, but every single playoff player that drafts Ezreal always ends up getting caught out so many times, and then Crown had an opportunity to base here. He did not have to do this, but he thought he's going to go down with the Alamo.
Went for the triple M hit.
Ends up losing, and the game's over.
Wasn't the right call. It spells disaster for OpTic when they were in control of that game for so long. And this is where I have to make a very peculiar announcement. Following the countdown, Crumbs decided to go ahead and flip-flop his prediction.
Flip-flop alert.
He saw Champion Select. He saw the first maybe 15, 20 minutes of the game, and he said, guess what, fellas? I'm on the OpTic train. There's no way this team loses this series after the display of control that they put out here on the map today.
Okay. You know, the best part about that is that OpTic lost, so now I don't have to back myself into a corner and say, oh, it's a results-based analysis.
That's true.
The thing that really stood out to me was that before this series, we were saying that CLG was going to win based off of improved Baron control and objective control. They dropped the ball completely. OpTic Gaming had all the Dragons -1. They had all the Barons, all the Elders, and that was the biggest
Not
thing.
all the Elders.
Well, yeah, the very last one, so they
yeah.
kind of threw the game. So that was a huge deal to me. And then the fact that in the draft, they did not prioritize giving something to Wiggly, like the Jarvan and Sejuani that he had a lot more success with. They let those picks get drafted away and banned. So to me, I felt like OpTic came out swinging way more, even though the result was CLG favor.
I don't really mind the fact that the OpTic got good Drake control this game. They took Bard to do it. They ended up taking a lane-dominant support. It's a good matchup into Braum so that they could control CLG's bot lane to get the Dragons. And they did a good job. For the most part, CLG flipped to the top side of the map. They dropped their Rift Herald up there. And, you know, that was... You know, it's a fine thing that OpTic did to get the Drake control in this game, but I don't think that's always going to happen if CLG focus on getting better matchups in the bot lane.
Well, I think what's very interesting is that this game very much started almost with the team's identities flip-flopped. As you mentioned, OpTic, the one with the objective control, the Drake control, and even intelligent calls around where CLG would be putting focus. So much so, following a couple picks in the bot river, OpTic securing that first Baron with an intelligent call, knowing that CLG would hard focus the Dragon.
This hurt to see. How many times has this happened for OpTic, where they are in a winning position, but individual members get caught out, and then everybody else trickles in to lose more?
Let's hear it from the OpTic side, though. Following this play, their response.
I have ult, so
Okay.
I can knock people out of the fight.
We able to we can make it.
I want Baron? They might focus on
I feel like we can pressure Baron.
Hey, let's go.
Right up.
Yeah.
We have Corki TP in
This
fact.
is not it, guys. I can ult him out.
We don't take much damage. I think we can do it.
Let's go.
They don't have wards. They don't have wards.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run straight there.
Okay.
I think Corki TP mid.
Yeah.
We need the...
I'll ult whoever comes.
Okay.
If the jungle comes, I'll ult.
They're probably not thinking about it.
And this was such an intelligent Baron call. Like, everyone's focused so hard on the double Infernal that over here you see, I think Dokla starting the call to go for Baron over here. Super good. We were all debating, we're like, who made the call? Was it Meteos? Was it big?
Yeah.
And then suddenly we all get told it's Dokla. And it's like, holy shit, this guy carried with the call.
I mean, he's
still lost.
He's been stepping up. I mean, so let's talk about why they still lost. Right.
It's important to break down.
I talked about in the countdown about Crown has been a liability in some games and how he gets caught out of position and dies. It happened in the play to start that whole situation, which Dokla salvaged with his shot calling, and then he got caught out of position in a red juggle on a Baron push. And then the third play there in the bot lane, maybe he didn't need to be split from his team again. Like, he was always away from his team when the action was breaking down.
So definitely some criticism can be levied towards Crown in terms of, you know, throwing it away. Again, in keeping with the team's identities all split long. It started with those identities flip-flopped, or OpTic was playing more of a CLG style. But it closed in very much the same way we had seen a number of OpTic games close throughout the summer split, which was that OpTic, even with some semblance of control, starts to get a little frantic and crazy around the map, thinking they need to end it in a split-push fashion or by opening up the map, and that's where the mistakes come in.
I want to point out that it wasn't just a semblance of the control. They had huge control this game.
Yeah,
Off
right,
the
I
Baron
like it.
call, Big did a great job setting up for aggressive bar pick plays. They controlled bot side jungle. They snowballed the Baron power play into like almost an 8-minute, 10-minute power play that secured 4 towers and full control of the game and aggressively allowed them to push inhibs. Like, they were in such a good position.
By all accounts, this is a game that should have been won by OpTic at that 20-ish, you know, looking at the 20-minute mark forward.
It hurts to see that with 4 Barons, they were barely able to crack the base. I mean, you got Rapid Fire and the Bar that actually you can use the ultimate to bait a fight, take the turret, and then back off and slowly poke and prod.
Fun fact, this was the first time since summer 2014 that a team has taken 4 Barons in a single playoff game. Who you know? Yeah. Thank you for asking, Mark.
Can you tell me who else
I
did
would
that?
love to inform you. The last time this happened was a playoff game between one Dignitas
At TSM?
and TSM,
And
where
that game.
Dignitas secured 4 Barons, and then what did they do, Crumbs?
They backdoored the game with Nasus and won the game.
Dignitas lost that game
Wait,
to
really?
TSM.
Oh,
shit. No, we won that game.
No, it's right
We
here.
lost the
Dignitas
series.
lost
We
after
lost the
getting
series
4
'cause-
Barons.
Oh.
That's what it says.
Wait.
That's what I was
I don't
told.
remember that.
Oh,
yeah.
your memory's a little foggy now. All of a
I
sudden.
don't remember that either.
Memory's
That's
a little foggy. All right, here we go. Real quick, OpTic goes to blue side here for game 2. So, Crumbs, as you have now put your backing behind OpTic, what do you want to see change now here on blue side to come away with the W this time
I
around?
think they drafted fine. I really just want to see different playing out of them. The fact that you got so many members getting caught out, the most important carries, when you're running a Poppy Jarvan composition, they cannot be the ones to get picked off. It's up to Arrow and Crown to step it up.
Clean up that execution. Game 1 was a doozy. We'll see if game 2 can deliver when we return for our next bash between CLG and OpTic Gaming. Don't go anywhere.